the food and diet, along with this plant-based thing, I'm assuming like totally plant-based. I'm on HRT, the creams and stuff, all that stuff. So I had a question, like you mentioned garlic and eat garlic and, for the zinc and all that, but is it better cooked? Is it better raw? And then I wanted to talk a little bit about like the cruciferous vegetables and food that affects you if you're on thyroid medicine it already, because I struggle kind of with that. Like I'm now growing my broccoli sprouts and they say eat them raw, and I'm thinking to myself, but I know the raw broccoli is something I'm supposed to avoid and always cook something a little because of the medicine I'm on for the hypothyroid. So some of the stuff gets a little contradictory, and I wanted to optimize my eating. And also, I've had different doctors say about how to take thyroid medicine. And like one of them said, oh, even divide it up, because the medicine has such a short half-life that if you take some of it in the morning and then a little bit in the afternoon, you'll have that more even effect between the T3, the T2s, the T this cells, all this stuff. I don't know. It all gets kind of like you don't know what you're doing anymore and you just want to have a hamburger. I mean, not really. I'm just kidding.
No, I get it. It can feel very difficult. And I think when you have a thyroid imbalance already, you have to, as you've said, be more mindful of making sure that you aim to have your iodine blocking foods at different times to the foods that won't. So with your thyroid medication, I'm not supposed to give personalized medical advice on here, but I would suggest, if you haven't already tried it, make sure that you have your medication at different times from when you're eating. So perhaps just have it on an empty stomach at the beginning of the day. I wouldn't worry too much about the half-life issues that you have previously been worrying about, because actually the half-life of thyroid function is very long. We usually test it every 3 months to get an accurate assessment of the right dose of thyroid hormone supplementation. We can sometimes do it 6 weekly if we want to get an idea of the direction it's going in, but 12 weeks is usually what we do, because there is actually a very long half-life to the thyroid supplementation. So just aim to take it on an empty stomach, and you don't have to worry about taking it lots of times during the day. Just take the whole dose in the morning. It would be my personal opinion, but you have to discuss that with your physician. And as I mentioned in the talk, it's really about making sure that you have just enough of the components that you need to help you with your thyroid function. Now, remember, you're taking a thyroid supplement, so in some respects, you don't need to worry as much, because you're actually supplementing your thyroid hormone anyway. But I would say make sure that you have 150 micrograms of iodine daily. And if you want to reassure yourself that you're getting that, there's no harm in taking a non-seaweed based iodine supplement daily, and ensuring as well that you have enough selenium. So perhaps taking an iodine supplement with a Brazil nut each day gives you the perfect amount of iodine and selenium, and you won't really particularly need to worry about consuming your cruciferous vegetables. You don't need to worry too much about how much garlic and whether it should be cooked or raw. And to answer your question, I think I always prefer cooked garlic personally. And interestingly, generally speaking, nutrients are quite handy to have both in cooked and raw forms. Many people get great advantages from following a raw vegan diet, and that's a great thing. But it's also worth mentioning that sometimes when you're cooking certain nutrients, they are more bioavailable. So, for example, lycopene and lutein are phytonutrients that are more bioavailable once you've cooked them. And the same with things like soaking and sprouting. These are really important things that you can do to increase the bioavailability of the nutrients within your grains and within your plants. So I hope that's helpful. I suppose really the main thing I want to perhaps leave you with is to try and make things a bit simpler for you, trying to help you to relax a little bit around these food choices, and just take your thyroid medication early in the morning before you start eating, and then monitor your thyroid function every 3 months to give you an idea of where things are going.
Thank you very, very much for that, Dr. Newman. And I'm going to go ahead now to Dominique. Welcome, Dominique.
Hi, doctor. Thank you for having me. So I'm 57 years old. I've been menopaused for 6 years now. It went flyingly. It took like 4 months, almost no heat flash and everything, and it was really great. I've been plant-based for 4 years and SOS free or low for a year, so I'm doing that good. My concern actually is about sleep. I've never been a person who sleeps a lot. I really try. When I go to bed before midnight, I wake up at 2 and I can't sleep anymore. So I'm a high energy person, but I've been getting brain fog a little bit, like memory lapses, and so I'm a little bit concerned about that, and it's just I can't sleep. So I don't know, maybe I have too many ideas in my head, but I don't know. Do you have any tricks, any hacks to fall asleep or something? Or do you think that 6 hours of sleep is good enough? Or because I've been going along 6 hours of sleep for most of my life.
Yeah. Thank you for your question. And it sounds as though you're struggling a little bit because, you've said that you are hoping to get more sleep and that you're having brain fog and issues during the day. And that when you go to bed before midnight, you wake up at 2 a.m, which is obviously not ideal. I think that many people sort of survive on less than 7 hours of sleep, but that doesn't necessarily make it optimal. Worrying about sleep is also in itself a bit of a problem. And I would love for people, so there's two types of person. There's the type of person who doesn't think about sleep and doesn't prioritize it and then doesn't get enough. And it's quite simple and straightforward for those people. If they can know that sleep is important, they might prioritize it, go to bed earlier, get more sleep. But there's another group of people that really suffer from being unable to sleep. And the advice is slightly different when you have insomnia, because you've probably done all sorts of things in the past to actually improve your sleep patterns. You may have had like lavender on your pillow, or, a hot drink before you go to bed, or a hot bath. There's so many things that people try and they think that it's going to help them sleep, and they get into certain routines that they think are going to help, and then they get worked up that it's not working, and it can lead to then quite a negative cycle. So I think probably the number one thing that I'd like you to take away from this question from me is actually to really focus on making sure that you get up at the same time every day. So don't try to lie in the morning. If you woke up at 2 a.m, then 3 a.m. or 4, don't try and lie in to catch up on the sleep. There's actually a really important technique, which is a type of cognitive behavioral therapy technique for people who suffer from insomnia, where you do have to almost reset your sleeping patterns by sort of forcing yourself into periods of wakefulness. And the main thing I'd say is focus on getting up at the same time every single day, regardless of how little sleep you had the night before. Don't force yourself to go to bed early. Only go to bed when you're feeling tired. I think that's a really important tip. Many people get really anxious because they know that sleep's important, so they'll aim to go to bed at 9 or 9:30 or 10, and then be worried that because they're not going to bed that they're losing out. So try to only go to bed when you're actually feeling tired, and make sure that you wake up with an alarm, if necessary, at exactly the same time every single morning. Now, even if that means that you don't go to bed till 1 or 2 in the morning when you start out on this particular sort of technique, you'll hopefully over the course of a few days or weeks find your rhythm, which will allow you to go to bed when tired, which would be a reasonable time, and continue to wake up at the same time each day. Another tip would be to ensure that you get early morning daylight exposure. So when you get up at this said time that you've given yourself, immediately within half an hour of that, go outside. Go outside wherever you live. You don't have to have a garden. Just leave the house and look up into the sky. even if it's raining, even if the weather isn't great, if you look up into the sky, the photons of light will be received by the retina, the back of your eye, and it will help you to stimulate serotonin in the body, which 12 hours later will turn into melatonin, some of it at least. And that melatonin will be a useful sleep aid because it will allow you then to start to feel more sleepy at the time of day at which it's appropriate to fall asleep. You may also then benefit from reducing your blue light exposure later on in the day. So if you're having to use screens, you could use blue light blocking glasses, for example. You could use low light around the house, lamp light, red light, avoid stark overhead lighting. And I think that's probably enough to be getting on with. There's a few more things I could say, but I don't want to be talking all day. I could give you a whole lecture on sleep, but I think the main things to take home are same time waking up each day, only go to bed when you're actually feeling tired, early morning sunlight exposure, avoiding caffeine after midday. And if these things are not helping you, then seek out an insomnia CBT course.